Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. I always counsel couples to agree before marriage to always put the lid down. It completely sidesteps the seat up, seat down argument. In addition, it avoids the problem of items like cell phones falling into the toilet, and it keeps the dogs out. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. First world problems. Several years ago, my wife and I got into a huge marriage-ending argument over the toilet seat. I'm not a monster, and I've mostly always put it down, but sometimes forget, as we do. This one day in particular, in the middle of the day, mind you, I forgot, and she lost her absolute crap. I mean, a multi-hour-long rant, so much so I took the kids and left. When I came back, we talked, she yelled, I yelled, divorce was thrown around, I asked if there was something else, but it was only me always leaving the toilet seat up. When I asked if it was always, her answer was very assuredly yes, and that this was my last chance. Next time she was leaving me and taking the kids. So I vowed to do better, and not just put the seat down, but the lid as well. This is where the malicious part comes into play. About a month passes, and I hear an earth-shattering, angry as F scream. Well, she started to sit to go pee and just started to go before finishing the sit. I'm cracking up, dying laughing. She's pissed, pun intended, just letting loose about why I always put the seat and lid down. Well, I said it's sanitary, as when you flush, particles fly into the air. It looks better, and it's equitable because she has to lift and shut the lid now. That didn't go over well, but she got over it, and the toilet's lid's always down with the seat. Well, yesterday was Cinco de Mayo, and we had a few margaritas. She woke up last night and forgot to lift the lid and did the same thing. Back timing the pee, the splashing, the screaming. I ran into the bathroom, saw what happened again, and just walked back to bed, shaking my head and giggling to myself. We had a talk this morning, and I reminded her of the argument and me always leaving the seat up. She actually smirked a bit and said, "Oh yeah." Can't wait for this to happen again because I will never leave the seat or lid up again. And our second story. Put the balls back? Okay. I'm going to start by saying yes, we did go into property that wasn't ours and taking things that weren't ours, but a deal could have been made to make everyone happy. When I was like 10, my dad took my brothers and I out to a golf course to search for golf balls. This course sits right along a highway outside of town a bit, and in particular had a thick tree line separating the highway from some key holes. We played there several times over the years and knew from personal experience how many balls would get lost in those trees. We parked on the highway and with plastic bags in hand made our way down the embankment into the tree line. We started slowly finding balls, but then it really picked up. We had hundreds of golf balls by the time it started to get dark. Each of us with 2 to 3 grocery bags full of golf balls. We finally crept out of the trees back towards the car where a woman stood. My dad, being as polite as he can, greeted the woman, who then let us know her sister owned the golf course and that we were trespassing. Yep, we were. My dad reasoned we could split the balls and give half to the clubhouse, golf course, or offer them up to the clubhouse for a quarter each or so. The clubhouse can then give them a wash and resell them for $1 to $2. The woman didn't like this. She did her best to scare us into handing the balls over, but my dad wasn't that type of person. After threats to call the police, she insisted that we can either give the balls to the clubhouse or you can put them back. Okay. Go on, boys, let's put these balls back. As he threw the first ball deep into the trees, we all joined in. For a good 5 straight minutes, we stood on the side of the highway with cars passing by, hucking golf balls as far as we could into the tree line. I can't remember exactly, but as we were wrapping up, my dad was suddenly in a hurry to get out of there. She probably called the cops, I'm guessing. We swiftly hopped in the car with our pockets stuffed full of Pro V1s, the #1 ball in golf, and made off into the night. Again, we were doing something we had no right to do, just could have gone another way that'd benefit everybody. I'm betting that she had no connection to the golf course, and that if your dad had given in, she would have demanded that you give them to her so she could give them to her sister, and then just kept them to herself and sold them. And our last story. Blatant corruption/fraud by a clique on HOA board. I'm living in a 350-unit park model resort location in the Deep South. Unfortunately, the HOA board here is utterly corrupt. Let me give you specifics. First, our park is quite large, and there are different sections, so to speak. The section where the 3 members of the board that are tight with one another live is the nice section, where the ocean's visible. On a minor note, all the renovations and improvements to our park have been done in that section, i.e. near their units, increasing their property values. In contrast, the other recreation centers and pools in the park have been neglected and dilapidated. But more egregiously, they've engaged in extremely questionable financial dealings. First of all, our bylaws require all major projects undergo a public bidding process. We observe that in every single instance, the same contractor, who's a personal friend of the board president, is chosen. His bids are often significantly higher than the other contractors who have submitted bids. Their justification at meetings is, "Oh, we know he does good work." They neglect, of course, that he's personally connected to board members. Previously, 4 members were all tight together, but several years ago, one of them was fortunately voted out, and then they were down to 3. But still no good, as they can still do just whatever they want with 3 out of 5 votes. I strongly suspect there are financial kickbacks going on here. More recently, numerous park members hired an outside accountant to conduct an independent audit of the park's books. The board claimed documents were lost, couldn't be found, etc. The auditor found significant financial irregularities, and that was just in the books, not counting the kickbacks that the same contractor's likely giving his cronies. Here's where it gets crazy. Recently, the board voted to spend around $800,000 on building a large retaining wall, upgrading all this common ground property, etc., again, all near the board members' property that views the ocean. Most of the people living in this park don't have a ton of money like that. The ocean view properties are super expensive, and it isn't right that they're prioritizing themselves to make their own property values go up at others' expense, many of whom live on a fixed income. However, the bylaws require that expenses over a certain amount go to a vote of the members of the park, and only if 66% approve will the expense be assessed to all park members equally. Well, the board called a meeting that wasn't publicized, wasn't publicly announced ahead of time, wasn't posted, etc. Then they had all the members from that section of the park show up at the meeting without notifying other people, and they did a quick vote, met the quota, and authorized the expense. They claim that they received over 66% of the votes cast. However, the vast majority of the park wasn't even aware that this vote was occurring. Thus, we all received a quite large assessment for these fees. Many of the people living in this park are older, and many are on a fixed income. I know it sounds like we're living a life of luxury, but there are literally people in here barely surviving. It's really just a glamorous trailer park with much nicer trailers than what you'd typically find, as well as amenities. This would be bad enough. An election was recently held for the board, and all 5 members lost. This would be a major victory, but it wasn't. They sued in county court, challenging that the election was invalid because the new bylaws had not been properly filed with the county. Of course, they were the ones responsible to file them, and the judge sided with them. He also allowed the 5 people who all lost election to remain on the board as an interim board until a new election could be held. Since that time, the 3 board members, the 2 other board members are not on board with what's going on, but those 2 are not running for re-election, have desperately tried to change the way the new election would be conducted and basically make it as non-competitive as possible so they can remain. For example, they won't give the new candidates the addresses of the people in the park so they can reach out to them. However, the board members are using those candidates' lists to send out mailings of their own to campaign. This information was available in the past, but this board, again on a 3/5 vote, voted to restrict it. However, some of the candidates are getting around this by looking up tax records, public records, deeds, etc. to get the mailing address, so this isn't really working. Again, this interim board, who's just supposed to be serving until a new one can be elected, has voted in, 3/5 vote again, complete changes of the election process, required candidates to be registered by a date that was only 5 days from the vote, i.e. they voted on a Monday to require that all candidates for the board must formally notify the office by that Friday. They've also had private sessions where community members were excluded from the discussions. Fortunately, those two board members that do seem like they're trying to do the right thing would come out and tell us what was going on. The board also voted 3/5 to not do any online or telephone board meetings, so out-of-town people can't even participate in what's going on, etc. The key problem with this park is only around 1/4 of the units in this park are actually occupied full-time by members. The vast majority, 3/4, are only used by the owners for summer vacations, quick trips, etc., but they have full-time homes elsewhere up north usually. Thus, they aren't even aware what's going on in the park. Moreover, our full-time park office manager, who runs the park office, fields calls from people and tells those people who to vote for over the phone. She is, of course, also really in tight with those 3 board members, and she's telling people who don't really know what's going on down here to vote for them. So she's able to basically get away with whatever she wants, said records were lost during the audit, etc. What's basically happening is that essentially all the park members living here full-time vote against these board members, but they end up winning by those other 3/4 board members that don't know what's happening down here since they aren't living here, and only hearing from the office manager, etc. I just don't understand how this can go on. It seems like at some point there has to be some sort of governmental oversight or regulation on these sorts of things. As far as the audit went, the park members did report that to the local county attorney's office, but they were essentially told these cases, kickbacks, are extremely difficult to prove unless the contractor admitted it. Not going to happen. And really the easiest way to deal with it was to vote them out. We're now literally being governed by a board of 5 where all 5 members lost the previous election. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.